I've got going on here is the biggest skillet that you own, and I've got a little olive oil that I'm hitting the pan with. A lot of olive oil, of course, that they use in Italy. I've got 4 boneless, skinless chicken breasts, and Deb went ahead and pounded these a little bit for me so that you wouldn't have to hear me pounding. And I'm seasoning these up and just flattened them a little bit so that they're going to cook more evenly, and they're also going to cook quicker, which I'm all about quick and easy. So salt and pepper, and then some. Just this is a blend of Italian seasoning, which we happen to have on hand here. I have it at home too. It's just oregano, basil, parsley, just some of those things that you typically find in Italian seasonings. If you don't have those, blend up your own. Just take a little bit of oregano, dried basil. I'm going to heat up my pan and get those chicken breasts in here. That's the sound you want to hear, and if you don't hear that sound, it's not hot enough. So pull that chicken out and wait till the pan is nice and hot. This is a very rustic dish, which means basically we're going to be able to serve this dish right out of the skillet, which is kind of, you know, when you think of, have you ever seen any movies that, you know, take place in Tuscany or read any books, you kind of get that feel where you're eating outside and big dishes of pasta and bread and, you know, just all set up on the table and, you know, loose flowers into a jar, nothing overdone or overthought. And that's how this kind of skillet is going to go to the table, just right in the skillet itself. More Italian seasoning on those chicken breasts. I'm seasoning both sides, and that's always important to do that. Whether it be chicken, steak, whatever, season both sides. Burgers. Now, I have to be honest, I have never been to Tuscany, and I've always wanted to go. It's on my to-do list. I was able to go to Italy way back. I took a big high school trip, my senior year of high school, and we spent some time in Rome and Florence and Venice, but we never got over to Tuscany, so I can hardly wait to go there one day. But until then, I've got to just do it through my food and, you know, recipes and wines and things like that. Gonna have to wait a little bit until those kids get out of school and that kind of stuff. Just want to check on my chicken breast. Okay, so I mentioned that Tuscan cooking is very rustic and a lot of beans and things like that. So we're going to keep it easy here. Like I said, I adapted this recipe to be more my kind of recipe. So I've got 3 cans of white kidney beans or cannellini beans, and I'm just going to drain and rinse those. So doesn't get much easier than adding some canned beans to the recipe, and it really is going to give this some nice texture, a lot of protein, and they're yummy. One, 2, and 3. And you notice there's kind of a funky liquid when you open these canned beans, and that's why you want to drain and rinse these beans. You just want to get rid of that liquid. We don't want to have that ruin our recipe. All right. You know, I think that we Americans, when we think of beans, canned beans, we think chili. But you can use them in so much more than that, and they're really delicious. Okay, chicken breasts are looking great. Just want to flip them over, turn up the heat a little bit. Deb, now I know you took an amazing trip to Italy.
I did.
With your husband a while back. Did you guys get to Tuscany?
I got to Tuscany. He didn't get there, but I got to Tuscany.
And?
It was like living in a dream.
Really?
You have to go, Amy.
I do. I know.
It was just like a dream.
One of these days. Did you sample some wine and olive oil, or what did you do there?
We did. We toured the countryside, and we went to a couple of the wineries, had dinner at the wineries, and it was just amazing.
Sounds absolutely magical.
It was.
Oh, wow. Oh, I can hardly wait. You know, I love food so much, obviously, and I love Italian food. That's really one of my favorites. So, yeah, I've always wanted to rent a villa there. I fell in love with Tuscany after I read the book Under the Tuscan Sun, which is just, you know, a fabulous book by a great author, Frances Mays, and it's about a woman who kind of her life is just not going real great, and I think she's going through a divorce, something like that, and she just chucks it all and heads to Italy and ends up buying this old kind of rundown villa, and it's kind of her adventures restoring the villa and meeting friends and living the Tuscan life. And anyway, really good book. The movie was not like the book, so isn't that always, or not always, but usually the case where the book is just so much better. So if you ever get a chance, read that book. It's really good. Just rough chopping some garlic. And I'm also going to use some rosemary in this recipe, and I just love the smell of rosemary, and that's just very, very Italian and rustic, and goes great with chicken. So you see how I do that? I just kind of take the leaves and run down. Let me show you one more time. So it's kind of looks like a Christmas tree, a little mini Christmas tree, and I just take my fingers and go right down the stem, and those leaves come right off. Rosemary is a really strong flavor. So, you know, if you're just starting to cook with it and eat it, you may want to go a little easy, especially if you're using, I'm using fresh rosemary here because that really rocks. It's just, I think, so much better than the dry. But dried rosemary can be really, really strong. The recipe calls for about 2 tablespoons, and I'm also going to kind of give it a rough chop. But if you're using dry, really like a teaspoon or so will do you. It's much more concentrated. Okay, I want to get those chicken breasts, which are starting to smell and look really nice. Perfect. Over to a plate. Cover them with foil. That'll keep them cooking. Thanks, Deb. And you notice we got all these great brown bits at the bottom of the pan. I'm going to take some white wine, dry white wine, and some chicken stock, and we deglaze the pan, which means we've got all these great little brown bits in the bottom from the chicken. And it's really going to give it some great flavor. All right, now we're going to add our beans in. I'm going to add my garlic in there too. And go our 3 cans of drained white beans. Let's get those all in here. Turn up the heat. I'm going to add some tomato. I did this for some color, a little bit of texture, and just because I like tomatoes. But if you're not a big tomato person, you can leave it out. I've got about 2 seeded diced. I'm using aroma tomato, but whatever kind of tomato you have. Now, if tomatoes aren't looking great, canned diced tomatoes would be great too. Just to make sure and drain them. I was just looking for my salt and pepper. Deb is like always one step ahead of me. Thank you, Deb. Just kind of like as a soup or stew, I'm going to season as I go a little bit. Season those beans with a little bit of salt and pepper. And I cook them, and at home you're going to cook this down a little bit longer. With that chicken stock and the wine, can you smell? It smells, wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. So what will happen is, as these beans just cook a little bit, and you can use a potato masher too, this is going to kind of thicken a little bit. Just kind of when you're making bean soup, how those beans kind of, thicken when you mash them a little bit. Same idea. We want to leave a lot of the beans whole, but I just want to get a little bit of texture in here. That rosemary, wow, does that smell good. So in goes our rosemary. About 2 tablespoons. Get that in here. That's going to give us so much great flavor. I've also got some Italian parsley, so some flat leaf parsley, just to finish off the dish, give it a little bit of freshness, brighten it up toward the end. And always, when you're cooking with parsley, go for the Italian parsley, never that curly parsley. That's just to decorate the plate. That's really what that's best for. This is such an inexpensive dish, too, but it's really tasty and really good for you. You notice we didn't use, everything we've used is really pretty healthy. Chicken breast, beans, tomatoes. All right, back it goes our chicken. With any juices that have accumulated on the plate, just slide that right in there. That'll kind of finish cooking. See all that great juice? More flavor in there. And let me tell you, this with a great loaf of crusty Italian bread, some olive oil for dipping, big salad, and maybe a nice dessert, and we've got one coming up. And there's just not much better than this. You can also, right before you serve it, maybe drizzle a little bit of olive oil over the top, and there you go. It's my Tuscan chicken and bean skillet